It was 3 in the afternoon when I walked back into my apartment and realized my entire day was gone. Not busy, not productive, gone. I set down the bags, the luggage we'd picked up, the groceries from 3 different stores, and I stood in the doorway of a cluttered room, and I felt this hot, familiar anger rise up in my chest. My whole day, shot. I had things I needed to do today, things that mattered to me. And instead I'd spent it driving from Walmart to Trader Joe's to Sprouts, following an agenda that was never mine. And the story in my head was simple and clean and satisfying. She did this. She always does this. She can't stand to see me make progress on my own life, so she fills my day with hers. That story felt true. It felt like justice. It was also the exact thing keeping me trapped. This is Entangled in Chaos, where we take the moments that make us feel crazy and find the pattern underneath. Because the chaos always has a structure, and once you see the structure, you stop being at its mercy. Let me take you back to that morning, because it started before the errands. It started in the bathroom. I was sitting there first thing, barely awake, and I heard the covers move, footsteps. My partner got out of bed, walked all the way across the apartment to the bathroom door, and told me to flush the toilet. Then she turned around and went back to bed. And I felt it immediately, this surge of, "Are you serious? I can't even do this. I can't even sit here alone for 2 minutes without her needing to insert herself into it, without her needing to be in control of even this." Now, if you'd asked me in that moment what I was angry about, I'd have said, control. She controls everything. But watch what I actually did with that anger. I didn't say anything. I flushed the toilet. And I filed the moment away, added it to a long, invisible ledger I'd been keeping for years. A ledger of every small thing that proved my case. That ledger is where this whole story really lives. Hold on to it. We'll come back to it. A little later, she asked me to come somewhere with her. She said the place was in a bad neighborhood and it made her nervous to go alone. And I said I didn't want to go. Here's where it gets interesting, because I didn't believe her. I decided right then that the bad neighborhood thing was a tactic, a way to make me feel guilty. I was sure of it. In my mind, she wasn't actually scared. She was manufacturing a reason to pull me into her orbit. And then she said something strange. She dropped the whole subject, the neighborhood, the fear, all of it, and out of nowhere she said, "So we just live separate lives now." And then, just as fast, she changed the subject again, like she'd said something she hadn't meant to. I remember thinking, what a bizarre response. We were talking about an errand. Where did that come from? Sit with that question, because that one sentence is the key to the entire day, and I missed it completely. Let me pause the story here, because there's a pattern moving underneath all of this, and it has a name. The name is reactance. Reactance is one of the most reliable things about human beings. When we perceive that our freedom is being restricted, even in the smallest way, we feel a spike of distress and a powerful urge to push back and reclaim it. It's not a character flaw. It's wired into us. A toddler does it. A grown adult does it. You felt it every time someone said, "Calm down," and you got less calm on principle. Here's the crucial part. Reactance doesn't measure how much control is actually being exerted. It measures how controlled you feel. Those are 2 completely different things. So when I heard "flush the toilet," I didn't experience a request about plumbing. I experienced a symbol. A tiny data point that plugged straight into a much larger belief I was already carrying. I'm not free in my own life. And once that belief is running in the background, everything becomes evidence for it. The toilet, the errands, the clutter, all of it gets read through the same lens. This is the first thing I want you to notice, because it changes everything that follows. I wasn't reacting to her behavior. I was reacting to my story about her behavior, and those had drifted very, very far apart. Now let's talk about the sentence I missed. So we just live separate lives now. I'd been treating my partner as a person running a strategy, manipulating me, managing me, controlling my time on purpose. That's how I'd cast her in my ledger, the villain who needs me under her thumb. But strategies don't leak. That sentence leaked. It came out sideways and got yanked back, which is almost never what manipulation looks like. Manipulation is deliberate. That was involuntary. In attachment terms, what I most likely witnessed was something called protest behavior. When one person senses distance opening up between them and someone they're bonded to, they don't always ask for closeness cleanly. Sometimes it comes out as a jab, a guilt trip, a strange, wounded question dropped and abandoned. It's a clumsy bid for connection wearing the costume of an accusation. "Come with me, I'm scared" might not have been a manipulation at all. It might have been the only way she knew how to say, "I want to be near you." And when I said no, the fear I'd get pulled into her orbit, that fear made me deaf to the possibility that being pulled toward someone isn't always a trap. Sometimes it's just an invitation I don't know how to receive. I'm not telling you she communicated well. She didn't. Neither did I. I'm telling you I read a bid for closeness as a bid for control, because control was the only story I was fluent in. So why did I go on all those errands if I resented them so much? This is the part I avoided looking at for years, because the answer isn't flattering and it isn't about her. I said I didn't want to go, and then I went. Nobody physically moved me into that car. There was no threat. What there was guilt, that separate lives sentence sitting in my chest, and a deep discomfort with the tension of holding my own no. So I did what a lot of us do. I said no with my mouth and yes with my body. I complied to make the bad feeling stop. And here is the mechanism that runs so many relationships into the ground. Compliance without consent always turns into resentment. Every single time. When you agree to something you didn't actually want, the cost doesn't disappear. It gets stored. And because you can't stand to see yourself as the person who gave your own day away, you assign the bill to someone else. She took my day. No, I gave it to her quietly to avoid a hard conversation, and then I charged her for it. That invisible ledger I mentioned, that's what it really is. It's not a record of her crimes. It's a record of all the times I abandoned myself and needed somewhere to put the blame. Let me connect this back to the apartment, to the clutter, because it fits the same pattern. I stood in that doorway furious about the mess. And the mess is real, I want to be clear. The frustration is legitimate. Living in a cluttered, cramped space is genuinely hard, and doing most of the cleaning while feeling like no one else lifts a finger is exhausting and lonely. That's not imaginary. But notice the shape my frustration took. She's a tornado, she's a hoarder. Nobody helps me. I'm the only one who does anything, total, absolute. She is the destruction, I am the lone cleaner. That's not a description of a mess. That's a role I'd assigned myself, the last responsible person in a house of chaos. And that role, as heavy as it is, comes with a hidden reward. It makes me the good one. The victim of the tornado is never the one who has to look at his own part. Because here's a question I didn't want to ask. Had I ever once sat down with her calmly, not in the heat of it, and said, "The clutter is really affecting me, can we solve this together?" Or had I just cleaned in silence, resentfully, adding each swipe of the sponge to the ledger? I knew the answer, and it wasn't the answer of a helpless man. It was the answer of a man who preferred quiet resentment to open conflict, and then wondered why nothing ever changed. So let's step all the way back and look at the whole machine, because now you can see both halves of it turning at once. She sends out clumsy bids for closeness. "Come with me. We live separate lives now," because she feels the distance and doesn't know how to name it. I read those bids as control, because reactance and my old story translate every request into a threat to my freedom. So I comply on the outside to kill the guilt, and resent on the inside to protect my pride. She feels the resentment radiating off me, because resentment is loud even when it's silent, and it confirms her fear that we're drifting apart. So she reaches again, a little more desperately, a little more clumsily, which I read as more control, which produces more silent compliance, which produces more resentment. Neither of us is the villain. We're two people caught in a loop, each one's move triggering the exact response that keeps the loop spinning. This is what I want you to see. The chaos wasn't coming from her, it wasn't coming from me, it was coming from the pattern between us, a pattern we were both feeding. That's the day that disappeared, not stolen, co-created. So what do you actually do with this? Because insight without a tool is just a nicer way to stay stuck. Here's the first one, and it's the whole ball game. Say your no out loud and mean it before your body says yes. When she asked me to come along, the honest move wasn't to go and resent it. It was to say, clearly and kindly, I'm not able to come today, I've got things I have to get done, but I hear that you don't want to go alone, let's figure that out. That's a real no attached to real care. It holds my day and acknowledges her. It refuses the guilt without refusing the person. The reason that's hard isn't the words, it's that you have to tolerate the discomfort of the other person being disappointed without rushing to fix it. That discomfort is the price of not building resentment. Pay it up front in the honest conversation, or pay it later with interest in a ledger that poisons everything. Second tool, separate the request from the story. Next time something small lands like a control move, flush the toilet, come here, do this, try asking yourself one question. If a friend I trusted said this exact thing, would it feel like control? If the answer is no, then what you're reacting to isn't the request. It's the story, and the story is yours to examine, not theirs to answer for. Third, name the pattern, not the person. There's a world of difference between you're a tornado, you're a hoarder, and the clutter in here is really weighing on me, and I need us to build a system together. The first is a verdict on who she is. The second is a description of a problem you can both stand next to and face. One starts a war, the other starts a project. And fourth, listen for the leak. When someone drops a strange, wounded sentence and yanks it back, so we just live separate lives now. That's not the throwaway line, that's the actual message. Everything else that day was noise, that was signal. The kindest, strongest thing I could have done was set down the errands in my mind and say, wait, what did you mean by that? I didn't ask, and the day disappeared instead. I told you to hold onto the ledger. Let's end there. For years, I thought that ledger was my evidence, proof of everything that had been done to me. I guarded it like it was the truth. But a ledger of grievances isn't a record of what happened to you. It's a record of every moment you chose silence over honesty and compliance over your own no. It's not written by the other person. You keep it yourself, one quiet resentment at a time, and you can put the pen down whenever you're ready. Getting my life back was never going to come from winning the argument or proving she was controlling or finally getting her to see what she does to me. It was going to come from the least dramatic thing imaginable, saying what I actually mean out loud on the day it matters, and letting the discomfort of that honesty replace the comfort of the ledger. The day didn't disappear because someone took it. It disappeared into the gap between what I said and what I meant. And that gap is the one thing in this entire story that was always, quietly, mine to close. If any of this landed, if you recognized your own ledger somewhere in here, subscribe and stay with us. We're going to keep taking the chaos apart, one pattern at a time. Understand the chaos, break the pattern.